it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is the place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. Subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. So tonight I'm going to be discussing with you, or today, or good morning, or whatever time it is over there where you are. We're going to be discussing Toastmasters. Now, what is Toastmasters and why was I at a Toastmasters event? And let's go for it. Asexual review. So Toastmasters is an online club which has in-person clubs all around the world. So these people specialize in public speaking. So you can join something called Toastmasters International, and you can become a member, and you can go through a course that teaches you the skills online of public speaking. Then, if you want to practice those skills in real life with people local to you or in your country or wherever you can get to, you can then join a local Toastmasters club. So you pay a fee to the international Toastmasters and then a fee to the local club. However, you can go as a guest to try it out. So you can go and attend a meeting for free. Before you decide whether you want to sign up or not, you can go to a couple of these meetings. They usually allow up to a maximum of 4. On the 4th one, they're like, you need to pay now. So basically 3 times you can go for 3. The 4th time, after that, you need to join up if you're going a 4th time, which is fair enough. It's really low cost, but you get really good help and feedback. So I went to a meeting for the very first time on Wednesday, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anyone in the group whatsoever, and I learned quite a lot in that time. So they basically have different roles to host a meeting, and different people have different roles in different times, and they fluctuate. So basically you have someone who's in charge of the meeting, like the Madam Toastmaster it was this time, because I happen to be a female, and there's a custom where you need to shake the person's hand, the main Toastmaster who's hosting the meeting. So the Toastmaster host, you have to shake their hand when you go up to the stage part, and then shake it afterwards, basically when you're done. And they have someone who's keeping time of the speeches, because there's speakers there which are also members, and you have someone who is like noting down the ums and ahs of people, because when you're public speaking, you're supposed to cut out as many of those as possible, preferably all of them. You're not supposed to say at all, because they're superfluous words that's not needed. So you need to cut them out. It's difficult because obviously in everyday conversation, sometimes we do put them in. So in public speaking, you have to cut all those extra words out. I learnt this in radio presenting, though, that you need to cut out the ums and ahs, because it doesn't sound very good when you're on the radio. I used to be a voluntary radio presenter for years, so that training was really great that I had when I was a voluntary hospital radio presenter. I didn't know I was asexual then. And also there's someone who is giving feedback to the speakers, but there's a different person giving feedback usually. So there's 3 speakers and 3 different people evaluating. Excuse me, I went for a chest x-ray earlier because my chest is problematic. So anyway, they had 3 speakers on, and after the 3 speakers, towards the end, they had a different person evaluating them. And whenever someone takes on a new role, a role they haven't done before, so say it's the first time evaluating someone else's speech, you've got to give them a standing ovation. It's a custom. And you have to clap after everyone's spoken, because it's meant to be encouraging, positive, uplifting. And it's supposed to be constructive feedback, not harsh. There was a guy who was a speaker there last night, and he had a migraine, but I still think he did really well despite the migraine. However, he did get quite a bit of criticism, I thought, which I didn't think the feedback was so was so good on his because he got interrupted by a director. They had a Toastmasters director come down, but the Toastmasters director came down in the middle of the speeches, like an hour into the speeches, and this threw the guy totally off track. And then he was back in, he wasn't on time, he wasn't on track, so he was back in time to where he should have been. But that wasn't his fault. But instead of any feedback about that from the actual person giving feedback, it's more of a case of, oh, it didn't make so much sense. But I think that's because you have a migraine. I think it's because he was interrupted. And it was making sense to me until he was interrupted, and then he had to just cut things short. Excuse me, but I actually liked his talk because he was talking about things to do with work and how you advance in work and what people look for the most in advancement in employment. It's very interesting. I thought I liked his talk a lot, actually. It's a shame they didn't allow him to finish off without rushing him through because someone interrupted. I didn't think it was great, if I'm honest, about the director. The director was a lovely person, but I didn't think it was good that he interrupted in the middle of the speeches. He was a nice person, and he come all the way from Bristol, so it's a really long drive, and there's problems with the car parks in last night. But nevertheless, it did throw that guy off. And I think it was a shame he didn't actually say that himself on the stage when he took to do the questions and answers. It's a shame that he didn't actually say, oh, and yes, I'm really sorry I did interrupt you, such and such a person. I realise that did throw you off guard. I know speakers have to deal with situations like that, but this guy had got a migraine. He was doing really well as it was, and he just didn't expect that. And neither did I, really, from a director especially. Do you know what I mean? So that was interesting. And they do something called table topics. Now, table topics, someone is nominated for, and they have to decide the topic. So they pick random topics, which is usually a question. And the person who gets chosen to answer that question has to do a 2-minute talk. And these table topics were aimed predominantly at the guests, like me and 3 other guests, but there was also a couple of other people that got involved, which were speaking there as well. So, yeah, it was very interesting. Apparently one gets picked on quite a lot, but he wasn't actually doing a main speech. He just did the table topics. So it seems he comes and does table topics, and table topics are impromptu. In other words, they're ad-libbed. There's no script. They're unplanned. So I got asked in the break, do I want to take part in that? And I said yes. So the woman gave me a question, which was, if you could do deep sea diving or skydiving, which one would you do? So I got up to go and do my talk to the front of the stage area. Bear in mind, I didn't know anyone there at all. I just met these people that night. And so they asked me this question. Would I like to do deep sea diving or skydiving? I had to come up with a 2-minute talk. So this is basically how my talk went. I said, well, I can't swim, so I wouldn't do deep sea diving. And I'm afraid of heights, so I wouldn't want to do skydiving either. And I don't even fly on a plane, and I haven't flown on a plane for years. I'm literally petrified. So the first plane I ever went on, because I've only been on 2 planes ever in my life, was one to Jersey. And this was the first plane I ever went on in my life. And it was an old rickety plane, basically, with about just 40 passengers on. And you can imagine going across the sea on that. And it wasn't a good first plane to go on, first trip, basically. And then that next plane I went on was to Spain. This was years ago. And I cried. And it was only an hour's journey. And I was literally holding on to my seat for dear life like this. And when I'm at the Toastmasters speaking, I'm literally doing the hand gestures like this as I'm stood up. And I got offered to go with the person who drives the plane. I was doing this. I didn't say pilot. I was like, the person who drives the plane. I got offered to go in with them, which I said you probably wouldn't be asked to do these days for safety reasons. You probably wouldn't be allowed to do it. And I was like, no, I want to stay in my seat. And I was literally holding on for dear life to my seat. I wouldn't move the whole time. And I was like, so like, no, 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 no. And I was just crying. Um, but it was only an hour's flight, and so I don't go on planes. And so I said, I don't have a desire to travel like most people do. And that's really difficult on dating sites because most people on dating sites like want someone they can travel the world with. And a lot of them are into traveling, whereas I'm not. And I am honest about this in my, when I'm talking to people on dating sites. I said, but I will go on day trips. But that's why I like the city I live in of Exeter, because the beauty of it is you can get trains to pretty much anywhere. And I said, I will go to Disneyland Paris. I went there recently, but that's the only place I want to go to abroad. And I went by Eurostar. I didn't fly on a plane because I'm not going to do things that I don't like that basically hurt me. So I went by Eurostar. And if I go to London, for example, I can get up really early to go to Shrek Adventureland or London. So I can do that, and I don't mind going on day trips. I like them. And sometimes I would have to stay over in London, for example, to go to London Zoo. So yeah, if you ask me if I want to do deep sea diving or skydiving, it would be no thanks. And so that's basically roughly how my talk went. And so I sat down, and then later on, we got evaluated as guests who did, and anyone who did the table topics, we got evaluated on our speech. And I was so happy because the guy who evaluated me, nearly had just complete positive words to say about my speech. Don't forget, this is the first time. There's about 20 people in the room, and I don't even know these people. So the guy said that I opened the talk with a smile, which was really nice. I've got a loud, booming voice, which is great because people at the back could hear, so the whole room could hear, which they did mention earlier. It's a very important thing because they need to be able to, the person who's speaking needs to be able to project their voice enough so that the people at the back can hear. And he said, you were very enthusiastic, you engaged the audience well, you paused in the right places, everyone was with you as you were speaking, and they, were with you in the trauma. They could feel what you feel. And they said that I smiled at the end as well, and they thought the smiles was really nice. So I got a lot of positive feedback from that, and I thought that was really good. So it made me feel really great to get all those compliments and to know that I did well. They said the only thing is you may want to slow down a little bit. That's it. Which the girl after me who got appraised as well, she got the same evaluation, tiny criticism, if you want to call it criticism. I don't really think it's that criticism, really, because I know that I talk really fast a lot. And so I think just saying I talk fast a tiny bit, that's quite a compliment for me because it means I wasn't that fast as I usually am, I would say. And I would agree with myself on that, thinking back to the talk. But the thing is, when you're in flow, you don't want to be talking too slow because you'll forget the next thing you want to say. Because when you're ad-libbing, which is what I had to do, because impromptu, unplanned, you kind of have to go from one thing, and as soon as your mind thinks of the next thing, you have to jump to the next and jump to the next because you're ad-libbing on the spot, if you know what I mean. And so you really have to be thinking of the next thing without totally thinking about it. Like the more you think about it, like I'm thinking more now as I'm saying it, and I'm conscious if I made a few tiny little speech errors as I'm relaying it back to you. I'm putting words in there that shouldn't be used if I was speaking it, which I didn't use, I don't think. So, when you think about something, you can then cock up more and make a mess of things more. So it's actually better to just go with the flow and carry on talking. And to be honest, the speakers I like the most, like the top speakers in the world as well, they usually talk fast. They're well known for talking fast. But some people like that and some people don't. And I sometimes find that some speakers, because I talk fast, they do talk a little bit too slow for me, in the sense that I can end up thinking I'm losing interest in this because they're talking a bit too slow and it's a bit too much like this. And so therefore I'm kind of losing interest because the tone is a bit more slower, you know. I do realize I probably will have to slow down a bit though in some of my speeches, but I'm okay with that. I can try that and practice it. But yeah, so I was glad I got through the night without actually having to run off to cough stuff up. As you can probably hear, my voice isn't completely better yet. Had to go for a chest X-ray. So yeah, I loved the fact that I was really welcome there. The people were really friendly to me. I seemed to get on with the people there, which was really good. There was actually a guy from Sri Lanka who introduced himself to me. He's got a wife and kids, and he used to be doing Toastmasters for 8 years in his country. But he's only been in the UK for 2 months and wanted to retake Toastmasters up again with his local group. But he doesn't live in Exeter, he lives in Torquay, where I used to go to college. So from an asexual point of view, there was something I really loved about the Toastmasters, and that was they didn't make any sexual innuendos or connotations or have any sexual content in any of their speeches. And I have been to business meetings before where they've had sexual innuendos, sexual connotations, sexual remarks. And this is a speakers club where they could have done some speeches with humor based on sex, but they didn't. They did have a lot of humor in some of the talks, but they never once talked about sex, and they never once used sexual innuendo. So I was really happy with this because the amount of times asexuals get so fed up of hearing about sex, sexual innuendos, sexual connotations, and it's like all over everywhere, all over advertising, the media, and you just get fed up of hearing it. And it seems like everyone thinks you can't be successful at doing anything unless sex is involved, which simply isn't true. And so it was so refreshing to see people there. There was a lot of guys there actually. There was more guys, I would say, than women. Although it was me and 2 other women guests. There was the woman who was taking the meeting. She was female. I've just said she's a woman, so of course she's female. That's so funny. And there was a woman who was deciding on the table topics. So yeah, and there was another woman in the front row, I think, or she might have moved seats to do the table topics. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I'd say the majority were guys there. So that was quite interesting. I know in some companies they do say there's a shortage of female speakers. And so yeah, I hope to put that right. So yeah, I had a really nice time. No one was sexual towards me. Everyone was great. The atmosphere was non-sexual, which is fantastic. And it was very fostering positivity the majority of the time, and really good. And so I did really enjoy my time there. I will go back and do it again. Unfortunately, the next meeting clashes with my speaker training that I'm already going through with Corey Poirier. He does additional training. He does networking meetings every month. And the next Wednesday he's doing it is the same day, well, evening, I should say, is when the next Toastmasters is. But Corey Poirier's courses come first because that's who I'm learning from. That's who I've paid a lot of money to teach me public speaking. And the networking is an extension of what I'm learning. And they cover a number of topics. And part of the masterclass I bought includes book publishing writing. So I'm already a published author under my own imprint, but I learn even more things about publishing and promoting books. And so it just adds to my knowledge. And that's great for future book releases, books I've already got. If you don't know, yeah, Asexual Perspectives, Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook on Amazon. So these are 2 of my printed books. I've got other books in just ebook format as well as those in ebook format. Yeah, so I really think that I felt very comfortable there as an asexual person. And I did mention when I first walked in the room and introduced myself to a couple of people, I did say that I'm a YouTuber and I speak about asexuality. So one of the other guests seemed to have heard of it before, because I said most people haven't heard of it. And she's like, oh, yeah, I know it. So that was very comforting. And yeah, I did mention I was a speaker at the UK Asexuality Conference 2018. I think I mentioned that to more than 2 people, actually. And, no one really batted an eyelid. So it's just they took it in. One of the people who was hosting the meeting, she said, maybe I should look for a more advanced course, because I've obviously done speaking training before. I'm doing speaking training. I'm speaking at Oxford University this year, in which my talk will include asexuality. Isn't the whole focus, but it's a good proportion of my talk. But my talk is all going to be all about how to reinvent yourself to become your future self. But part of that for me was comparing my past life to how I changed myself to do this channel, for example. Because I used to be very shy about talking about sex and anything to do with that. And now, obviously, I do talk about that as part of what I do to help asexuals. So it discusses like the fact I never went on, so used to want to go on social media. I was so scared, and now I'm all over social media. So I had to reinvent myself because I had to get over all those fears. So it talks about that, and obviously talks about my asexual journey as a huge part of that. So, it's going to be really good because I think it's very relatable. This is my talk that I've based on my chapter in the Blue Talks book that hasn't come out yet. So you'll kind of get exclusive information. This is what my Blue Talks chapter is about. Then I'll use that chapter to do the talk in Oxford, which obviously includes asexuality. So asexuality is going to be in a Blue Talks book with Ken Honda from Mind Valley. If you don't know what Mind Valley is, look at it on the internet, because you'll discover that it's an awesome online community for personal and professional development courses and advancements. It's really good. Anyway, yes, I was really happy with my time there. And from an asexual point of view, it's fantastic. I felt the energy was really good. I didn't get any bad vibes, any sexual vibes. I was really glad they didn't talk about sexual stuff. And yeah, it was really good. I know we'll go back. Anyway, I'm going to leave you for now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. If you've never subscribed, why not? Why not? You're watching this. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. And I'll see you on the next video live stream. Don't forget to check out Asexual Perspectives on Amazon. I'll see you soon. Take care. Share this video for anyone who may benefit from it. Lots of love. Bye.